From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Ticats This Week with RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker.
It is great to have you with us for Ticats This Week. RJ Broadhead along with Luke Tasker, and 3 games to go. They're all important now. To take the words of Jovan Santos Knox, we're in playoff mode now, win now mentality. Luke, it's the fate's in the Ticats' hands. They win and they're in the playoffs, and that's an exciting time of year to be in that position.
Absolutely. It's really all you can ask for. Even this year, there's been 14 games. This is still true, but normally with an 18-game season, it's like all that summer football, all of those games that you played, they're so long ago. You're a different team at this point. You really are. Like, oftentimes you get to this October, November football, and it's like you can't even identify with that team that was playing in July, right? But you get all this way, all these games played, and still everything's not set in stone yet, and it's all still on you to go out and make your best plays and determine your destiny going into the postseason. This is just the best time of year of CFL football. It's so fun to be a player, and it's fun for us to watch.
And it's been a crazy season for every team but Winnipeg. They're on cruise control. They're in good shape. They know they're going to host the West Final. BC's lost 5 in a row. They led in 4 of those 5 games. That game against Toronto was crazy. I know we were texting back and forth, but Jimmy Camacho, the kicker of the Lions, missing 3 field goals in the final 5 minutes and 9 seconds, goes to overtime. Toronto goes for a 2-point convert after they go first in overtime, which is risky because you don't get it, and the other team can easily get a touch. Well, not easily, but if they get the touchdown, the 1-point conversion's a lot easier, and BC couldn't convert on 2. And then Toronto in first place, 7 wins, and 5 of their 7 wins have been by 3 points or less. So you just look at this season for so many teams in the CFL, and we're Ticats focused, but so many teams have had ups and downs and 1 or 2 plays the other way, and it could have been way different. And BC's still in the mix after losing 5 in a row and a 4-7 record. They're not out of the playoff question in the West or the crossover at this point. If Ticats win, they're out of the crossover. But it's crazy that you lose 5 in a row and you still have a chance.
Yeah, it is really incredible. And BC just got off to a great start. They put themselves in a good position this season, but have not been able to make it happen lately. And this is another week, the 3rd straight week, where the Ticats can kind of use that idea of keep a losing team losing. I mean, you gotta give a team the chance to make mistakes, and don't be turning over the ball yourself. Don't eliminate the penalties that we saw. I think it was 15 of last week, and Coach O addressed it that really can't be a part of a winning formula. Now, in that game in Edmonton, the Elks also had 13 penalties or something like that. So in some ways it balanced. But, you eliminate those mistakes and you allow a losing team to continue to make the mistakes they've made. It's interesting what you say that about Toronto, though. They've had so many games that have been decided by, a very thin margin. Hamilton has had that as well. Not these past 2 wins, which were, pretty dominant. But in that mid-stretch of the season there, Hamilton had a number of games that were decided by less than 3 points, except they went towards the loss for Hamilton very, very commonly. Toronto has snuck that win out from a lot of those games that were close. And you could say, well, that's sort of an equalizer. These teams are playing, it's going either way. They're both playing good. They're making some mistakes. They're putting together some good games. But I don't want to understate the fact that Toronto has been able to, a win is a win. And if you make it happen at the end of the game, you made it happen. I mean, you earned that win. And so those games that the Ticats lost by a margin, there were many reasons why it got that close and why they didn't pull ahead. So you got to give Toronto some credit for having won those games by a tight margin. But Hamilton has now been playing their best football hands down the last 2 weeks. And even 3 weeks ago, we saw at least a good offensive performance and a loss that day. But BC Lions coming to town, and this is 100% playoff football for them. They have to win or it's done.
Yeah, absolutely. And more oddities. Their better record on the road. They're 3-1 against the East Division. 2 of those wins against Ottawa, 1 against Montreal. So they have had success against the East. Just looking at the statistics, one thing that stands out to me is the run game, and specifically BC's run game. It's last in the CFL, and Hamilton's run defense, we've seen it. It's been excellent. Number two in the CFL. So James Butler's been better lately for BC. But still, you'd have to think, if that statistic holds up, that the BC passing game, they'll have to rely on that, because Hamilton has not allowed teams much of a run game.
Yeah, they haven't. And if you're thinking as from the BC Lions, offensive strategy, something you've struggled with all year, and now you're going into a very, very tough run defense, are you really going to try to right the ship in your run game this week, this late in the season? No, you're going to rely on your veteran quarterback and your receivers to go make plays. That said, it's not like they're facing a bad pass defense this week. So it's just going to be a tough battle for BC to find some traction. Like it is for every offense against the Hamilton defense this year. I do think that I expect to see some substantial pressure, I think, from the Ticats, knowing that they can, get a strong rush and try to get that ball out of the hands very quickly. I don't know. I don't want. I've said this all year, RJ. You know what I think. I don't want to be an offense trying to plan against the Ticat defense. I just don't. They are playing very, very well this year.
Yeah, they've been really fun to watch. Mike Riley, one of the best in CFL history, is getting close to 13th all time on the passing yards list. But let's stick with the defense. You let us into it. Jovan Santos Knox, he had the big game, 10 tackles against Edmonton, his former team. But that's the first time a Ticat has hit double digits this year. That's pretty good performance in a game.
Yeah, spectacular. And we've Tunde Adeleke also had a good number of tackles last week as well. I have been very impressed with the linebacking core for the Hamilton Tiger-Cats this year. And Jovan Santos Knox, I think he does go a bit under the radar. Simone Lawrence is having a great season, and he's kind of doing what he's done for all his years with the Ticats. He's showing up every week. He's getting the spotlight, and he's getting it rightly so. I mean, he's just a playmaker. He's all over the field, but he is supported by two linebackers that have also had great seasons as first-year Ticats, Jovan Santos Knox and Cameron Kelly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they've been great. And I have to talk about Dylan Wynn too, because I know you're a big fan.
Oh, I love talking about Dylan Wynn. He's
got 3 sacks in his last 3 games, and he was talking in one of the Zoom chats and said that he's excited for the bar fight this week. And right away, I thought of you and that time during the game. You said, if you're going down an alley, this is the guy you want. Dylan Wynn as the guy with you. And I thought that's so typical. Bar fight, get in there and just grind it out. He against Edmonton that was so physical.
100%. I mean, that's how he looks at his job as a football player. He's a fighter, man. He's just he's not nasty. He's not dirty. He's just a big, strong, athletic guy, and he's quick. I mean, he is a very, very challenging guy to block. I remember when he came to the Ticats, Mike Filer and Brandon Revenberg, who had obviously played against him in his time in Toronto. And both of those guys looked at me and they said, "It's a good thing that he's with us now." Like, I'm tired.
That's always a good sign.
Yeah, like I'm tired of seeing him in blue 3 times a year. Just a great player, and he's just kind of an easy guy to sort of admire the way that he approaches the game. He's team oriented. His interviews are always sort of distributing the credit and just the praise to his teammates and coaches, and he embraced the Hamilton Ticat sort of mantra, sort of the way of being a Ticat so quickly and easily. He's a bar fighter. That's how he plays football.
Yeah, and that's the best compliment a player can have from his peers. Getting compliments like that. And he talked about, I think Louis B asked him about Jeremiah Masoli and the numbers that Masoli's been putting up. He said he doesn't really watch the offense. He's focused on what he has to do on defense, one play at a time. He really simplifies it. And it makes sense. 1 week at a time, one play at a time. Just make that specific play and don't worry about what's going to happen 3 plays down the line.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing that he said that, because I found being up in the booth this year, you and I watch a game way more intently than you do as a player on the sidelines.
Interesting.
And we start to naturally, like a fan, like anybody in media, you start to formulate how the season's looking and what this game means, that game means, and you get that understanding as a player. But all the details, the players are in charge of the details. We can only see the results. We can just see the big picture, but the players are focused on the details. That doesn't surprise me at all. Dylan Wynn, you get off the field, you're focusing on getting right for your next drive. And I always realize, I recognize that this year, you really don't get a chance to, as a receiver, watch your defense play that often. You come off the sidelines and you're trying to get right for your next, your job, because you're in charge of the little things and you got to get that right. And so it's very different. It's very different as a player, and we're not privy to that level of football and operating and preparing. Very unique to watch it from the sidelines like that.
And probably why there's a coach for every different little aspect of football. One guy can't handle it all. It's just a lot going on.
So many details. That's what the game comes down to. Yeah.
So Jeremiah Masoli, performer of the week, performer of the month for October. It's just been a great run for him. The best passer rating possible at 158.3 against Edmonton. He just continues to roll, make smart decisions, throwing touchdowns, not throwing interceptions. But he said something interesting, and it took me to Monday Night Football. I was watching the Manning brothers, and Daniel Jones threw an interception. Bang, as soon as he threw it, Peyton Manning said, his eyes. He never looked away. He looked at the receiver, and they showed a replay, and the defender just totally read his eyes. And that's one thing Jeremiah Masoli said. He said he's feeling more comfortable. The team's doing well. He's thinking better, but he said his footwork's better and eyes are in the right place. And maybe that's something that gets overlooked, that defenders are really reading those eyes. And if you can look them off, what a big difference it would make. But just that replay really, and Peyton Manning spotted it immediately. Then when you saw the replay, it's like, oh yeah, of course he's throwing there.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And I think it comes for Jeremiah, it comes with comfort and preparation, and you get into it, and these quarterbacks, when they're in their zone, they're seeing those contours. They're seeing those defensive shapes that you and I are seeing up from the booth when we're looking at 3 high and cut coverage down to the flats, or 1 high or 0, and they're seeing those contours, and they're looking at that when you're in the zone, and you're not looking at your receivers because you know where they're going to be, and so you don't have to watch them. So when you can keep your eyes through the Sam linebacker to the free safety half and corner, and when you're as a quarterback, you're looking to that wide side of the field and seeing all those shapes form at one point, and you're getting those signals that say, okay, I'm going to be throwing to this side of the field, or you see that shape that's not what you want, and then you can look to the other side and see that boundary half, boundary corner, and then when you have that concept in your head of where your receivers are, you're in the zone. And when things are moving too fast for a quarterback, you have to fall, or when you're a young quarterback and you're not quite there yet, and you maybe can ID a coverage prior to the snap, but you have to make that pre-snap decision. Well, then you're just getting dragged along by the game, and all you can do is just watch your receivers until they get open and throw it. But these guys who are operating at a very high level are scanning and seeing this defensive shapes that's telling them which side to go, and they already know where the receiver is going to be within that defensive contour. Sounds to me like Jeremiah Masoli is feeling very, very comfortable in that level of operation.
Comfortable and confident, because even just go out and have a target, stare at that one, but you're going to throw to your left, you're going to look to your right, throw to your left, and immediately do it and be accurate. That's pretty good skill. So there's a lot going on in the quarterback's mind. I know we've gone on and on here, Luke, but you want to play a game?
I do.
Well, let's play. How well do you know the Ticats' third all-time leading receiver? And our contestant today is Luke from the Buffalo area. All right. So the Ticats have not had a 100-yard receiver this season. They've come close. Amazing. 5 times. 5 times they've been in the 90s. Last week, Tim White was their leading receiver at 89 yards.
Wow.
The question to you is, how many times did Luke Tasker have a 100-yard receiving game in his 7 years with the Ticats?
Wow, that's interesting. 18.
14. So I cheated because I did the research and probably felt like 18 because if you add it all up, there's some pretty big numbers in there.
You went back and watched all the games, didn't you? And you counted the yards yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the computer's an amazing thing.
There you go.
But I talked to Tim White about it, talked to Jalen Acklin. They said it's not a big deal, team winning. And that's the right attitude and the right thing to say. But from an individual standpoint, just give us some perspective on what a 100-yard receiving game means for a receiver.
Yeah, it is a nice threshold. I mean, that's it's not just for the sake of being an even number. That kind of is you were an impactful player when you got over that 100 yards. But to those guys' points, Jalen Acklin and the receivers that you just mentioned there, the team winning. The more important point is if you wanted to focus on the passing game is total pass yards. I mean, if that quarterback completes the pass to 7 different guys, chances are somebody might not be over 100 yards. And that's kind of happening. I love watching Turnowski came in the game in Edmonton. And sure enough, Soley hits him on an arrow route for 45 yards that very next play. I mean, that is such an interesting thing about this offense and the way that they're operating, and about the trust that Tommy Condell is putting in this receiver group that's filled with some young guys. I love that that's how the game's progressed. But to your question, it is a great threshold to hit. It really is. I remember games where it's almost like especially for me when I was playing in the slot, sometimes is that F or R position, which is, the closest receiver to the quarterback to the wide side of the field normally. And you kind of felt like you're not doing anything special in a game. You kind of just are going along. You're getting a catch here and there. But by the end, there were days where I had 12 catches for 106 yards. I just was getting here and there and just getting first downs, doing what you're doing. And at the end of that game, no touchdowns, nothing spectacular, but wow, I really impacted the way this game progressed. And it's a good threshold to hit. I think, you can't just continue to pass for 300 yards plus every week and not have anybody over 100. That will happen for the Ticats here shortly.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And now is the best time to do it with 3 games left and wins are important. I want to ask you just a few quick questions before we wrap up. Don Jackson, he was great, 120 yards, best performance by a Ticats running back, and so much talk about his burst. That's reason for optimism going into this game, the way Don Jackson played, isn't it?
100%. I was very, very impressed while we watched the Edmonton game. We haven't seen Don Jackson a lot this year. I'm a passing. I want to see the ball thrown down the field. That's what I want to see an offense do. And I have this.
A receiver. Yeah, I get it.
I have a leaning towards that. But in the run game, what I like to see is an efficient backfield exchange. I cannot stand watching the run game where it seems like it takes 3 seconds just to get the ball transferred from the quarterback, from the center to the quarterback to the running back, and then have the running back. It's just frustrating to me. And I think that the Ticats have done a good job of efficiently getting the ball up the field quickly, even when they've included the receivers in the run game. That's increased this year as their speed and efficiency in the backfield. But Don Jackson last week, it's like the snap of the ball and that exchange from center to quarterback to Don Jackson, and Don Jackson past the line of scrimmage is like that. I mean, it was really impressive. And then when he does break through that first level, break through that line of scrimmage and those guys up in the box there, when he gets to that linebacker depth, he immediately swallows up the yardage that's available to him, and he goes straight line. I think he was a huge asset in Edmonton to the Ticats, and lucky for them, if they've got it, when Sean Thomas Erlington is healthy, they've got 2 guys who can be productive in the run game for them.
For sure. And Sean Thomas Erlington tied for the touchdown lead on the team. So when he gets a chance, he takes it to the end zone. 7 of the 16 carries by Don Jackson were for 8 yards or more. So that's pretty fun to watch for Ticats fans. At center, we're going to see Coulter Woodmansey. There are a couple injuries deep there now, I guess, with, of course, Darius Sirocco and John Yarbrough. What a rookie season for Woodmansey. finally gets a chance there at right guard beside Chris Van Zyl. Now he's at center. Like he's you got Brandon Revenberg and Van Zyl, and the offensive line really hasn't missed a beat with all these young guys.
Yeah, and I think you just said it right there. So you've got two guys. One was the most outstanding lineman in 2019, the last CFL season, and then Brandon Revenberg was the runner-up for that award the prior season. You've got two outstanding Canadian offensive linemen. And yes, the center is generally the orchestrator of those front five. He's generally on teams. You've got a center there who's making the calls in their protection and in the defensive fronts that they're seeing. We'll see, and maybe they are gonna keep that in that position. But Brandon Revenberg and Chris Van Zyl are undoubtedly going to play a huge role in keeping the cohesiveness of that unit, and they're more than capable to do so. So I think that we actually saw solid play, even with those as the injuries continue to happen in the Edmonton game. The protection maintained for the most part, and so it will be a challenge and a focus for the Ticats. But I've been impressed with the way that they've dealt with the adversity so far.
And something to keep an eye on is Jalen Acklin, touchdown in 3 straight games. Does he make it 4 straight?
You know what? I'm not going to be surprised if he continues to do this. And the funny thing about how his games have progressed to me, it's not like he's getting, a catch every drive, or he's, he gets 2 in the first quarter, 2 in the second quarter, and then scores his touchdown. Solely spreads the ball out, and then all of a sudden it's a 60-yard touchdown to Acklin. It's like, a couple times it's like, oh, there's Jalen Acklin and there's a touchdown, and that's the first thing you see of him. I know of it. I really enjoyed him being a rookie in 2019 with me. He works hard, but he's not. And I wonder if this sounds like I'm saying that he's not humble, which is not the case, because he is really a team first guy. You hear it in his interviews, and he is. But the guy wants the ball, and he wants to make a show of it. He wants to be the guy, and that looks good on a receiver. That's a good mentality to have for a playmaker. And so when his chance comes, he makes it, and he doesn't have to be. Excuse me. He doesn't have to be warmed up into the game, or he doesn't get out of funk if he hasn't had a ball in 20 minutes of game clock. If that play gets called, he's ready to score, and that's huge. I think it puts a little, in a Tommy Condell phrase, it puts a few drops in the trust jar. And I think Jeremiah Mazzoli, he's learning that more and more about Jalen Acklin. He's ready to go when his number is called.
For sure. And before we go, I have to say, nice mustache. You're taking part in Movember. Looks pretty good.
Yours isn't as quite as strong,
Nope.
But I trust that it's coming in shortly.
I have zero confidence in my mustache growing ability.
Well, yep. Louis B and I got the Movember campaign. So all Ticat fans are welcome to donate, to join the campaign, to grow your stash. We're going to have some sort of award or meet and greet or something like that for any fan who wants to take part in the campaign. So feel free to do so. We're fighting the fight with the mustaches until the end of November.
Well, looking good. And if any listeners out there want more about the mustache, Task and Twos with Luke and Andy, great stuff this week. It's hilarious and some great mustache stories. So BC in Hamilton on Friday. Can't wait for this one, Luke. We'll see you then.
All right, RJ. Looking forward to it, man.
Tons of great programming on Ticats Audio Network leading into the game. Of course, at 6 o'clock, it'll be Louis B and Andy Fan2s with Ticats pregame. Luke and I will have kickoff at 7 o'clock. Playoff spot on the line for the Tiger Cats. If they win, they're in the playoffs, so don't miss this one.
The Ticats This Week with RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker. Like and subscribe to get their preview the last weekday before every Ticats game.